collaborative law. Most people I speak to have never heard of it. I've even met family lawyers who didn't even really know what it is, which is pretty bad because it's been around for way over 10 years, even in the UK. Certain parts of America, it's been going longer. It's a brilliant process. It's so sensible. To put it in a nutshell, you have your lawyer and I have my lawyer. And this is very important, they're specially trained in the collaborative process. It's not like the normal family law process. So they need to be a traditionally trained family lawyer. They know the law, they know the family law for their jurisdiction, whether it's California, New York, or in the UK. Okay? But then they do this extra training. And it's very, 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 very different. If you talk to any collaborative lawyer, they'll tell you it's like, wow, it's a complete mindset shift for them. And they often absolutely love it because it keeps people out of court. You've got to remember that court can be very stressful for many family lawyers. They don't want to see people suffering and the children suffering, and going to court involves lots of bundles and time, and it can be very stressful, and then they have to give you a massive great bill which they might feel bad about, and a lot of family lawyers don't enjoy that. They would much rather help you come to an agreement. So collaborative law is a little bit like mediation, and I do think it's a good thing when collaborative lawyers do mediation training. Personally, I think they should all do mediation training because I think it's a very valuable additional skill. But they won't necessarily have done that, but they will have had the collaborative law training. And this means that they are trained to sit, your lawyer, my lawyer, and we talk across the table. There's no expensive letters going backwards and forwards. And their job is to help us cut a deal. And we often will focus on we will commit always in the true collaborative process to not going to court, which is a fantastic incentive, because if we decide, well, I'm not agreeing with this, I'm not doing this, then the whole thing stops, then the collaborative process stops, and that's it, and you have to get different lawyers. Now, some people think that's a bit extreme. I think it's brilliant because we need an incentive. It's tough negotiating. Sometimes we might get cross or lose our rag, and we need to know that there's a reason to come back to the table. Let's have another go, because it actually can be a very successful process, because at the end of the day you've got to cut a deal, and the best people to do that are you and your spouse, not some judge somewhere. Okay, now the things to be aware of with collaborative law is that some lawyers do the collaborative training but they're not very collaborative. So you really do need to do your homework. You need to talk to collaborative lawyers who have had successful cases, who have shown that they understand the process and they use it effectively, and that they have a real passion for it, because there are, unfortunately, a minority of collaboratively trained lawyers who are Rottweilers, basically, and they just haven't quite made that shift yet. So be aware of that. So don't just think just because someone's trained in collaborative law that necessarily that they are fully collaborative. And the best way to find out is actually to ask other collaborative lawyers, because they know who's truly collaborative and who isn't, and get your recommendations from other collaborative lawyers. The other thing to be really aware of is that some solicitors will say, oh, and this, I've heard this quite a lot, oh, we work collaboratively. Lovely, but they're not trained collaborative lawyers, and they'll do things called round table discussions, and there's nothing wrong with the two lawyers sitting down with you and your ex and having some discussions if they are very amicable and friendly. But if it's not, if it's tricky, these lawyers are not trained as mediators. If they're not trained as collaborative lawyers, they're not using a specific process. It's a kind of a loose, oh, let's sit down and have a chat. Surprise, surprise, that often that ends up all going psh, and then the lawyers go, oh, well, we tried to do it in a friendly way, but oh dear, we couldn't because they just argued. Oh dear. Well, you put them in a situation, actually, that make that almost inevitable, is my opinion. So don't get dragged into that. If you haven't got a good rapport with your soon-to-be ex, do not put yourself in a situation where you have people who are not suitably trained to hold that space, either mediators or fully trained collaborative lawyers in a proper collaborative process. Now, there is something known sometimes as collaborative light. Basically, that's a kind of, it's where you do collaborative process, but you're not doing it fully, in that if it all breaks down, you can still go and work with your relevant lawyer. I don't know. I think either do it properly or don't do it at all. And I'll tell you why, because in the next video, there is kind of backstop to that, where if it does fall apart, there is something else that you can use from the Peace Toolbox that allows you to not have to go to court, and that still keeps you in control of the process. But yeah, collaborative law, check it out. It's one of the options. If the other thing that's brilliant with it is if you've got quite a lot of complex financial situations, maybe you've got lots of properties, and you really want to get your financial planner in on it as a neutral person, as long as you both agree with that, that can save a lot of time. You've got that professional there answering questions. You can incidentally do that in mediation as well, which a lot of people don't realise. So you can again save a lot of time and money by bringing in those professionals. I know people who've used a collaborative process and had their relevant divorce coaches next to them, helping them breathe, keep calm. You can pop out, have a little chat, come back in again. You can do that with your lawyers as well. So it's a very flexible process, and it can be extremely collaborative. You can bring other professionals in as long as everyone's happy and agrees to what's happening and consents to that. So you really do you have control, and you design very much the way your divorce is played out. And for some people, to get everyone in a room to do it that way can actually ultimately for them save them a lot of time and money.